Hello again, everybody, with the Packers historian, John Dodds. I'm Tom Pipines. We've called it the Tom Pipines Show with John Dodds, but maybe we'll have a little bit of input from you. What are we going to call this show? Because the man in the middle is Gary Ellerson. He is the star of the show, the former Badger, the former Packer. He is a gifted broadcaster as well. 105.7 FM, The Fan, 2 to 6, The Big Show, The Catalyst there with Leroy Butler, and also with Leroy. They are on the football show hosted by Dennis Krause, Spectrum Sports. Gary, we're blessed to have you here, and this is fun. I have more energy now than I think I've had in 30 years. I better take it easy. I'm going to have the big one.
No, you're going to be okay, but I'm glad to be here to join both of you guys.
I used to just sap the energy right out of him. So it's good that you're here. It's good that Gary's here.
Sapped energy, well, we know all about that as it relates to the LA Rams, but it's in the rearview mirror, as we said in our last podcast. And now, Gary, you look ahead to Sunday afternoon's tilt at Lambeau Field against the Carolina Panthers. Obliterated by the 49ers. The Pack get them after the bye. But overall, the defense has played well. Cam Newton is out for the season on injured reserve, but the quarterback, Kyle Allen, has played within the system. He's 5-1. What is your take on this team bringing the second leading rusher in McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey, against a defense that has no clue how to stop the run?
Well, listen, I think the NFC right now is really good. I think there's about 10 teams in the NFC right now that get to the Super Bowl. I mean, they're just that stacked.
Wow.
And if you look at the Carolina Panthers, I think they're just as good as the LA Chargers, who the Packers just lost to. A lot of people didn't know about the Chargers because they were out west, but there was a team last year that won a bunch of games last year. You look at the Carolina Panthers, they've been good down there in that NFC South with the Atlanta Falcons, and those guys have been very competitive. And you talked about McCaffrey, right? The only way the Green Bay Packers are going to win this game is they've got to stop him. They've got to contain him. And what we do know about this Packers defense is that they give up a ton of yards. Now, if they can corral him and force Kyle to throw the football, I think they'll have a chance to win it.
I am so sick and tired, with all due respect, of watching Blake Martinez make tackles 5 yards or more beyond I understand he's playing with a club. He makes a lot of tackles. He's an effort guy, but it's just disappointing overall. That defense, I don't know, John. I'm starting to question it. I was enthused. I'm starting to question, especially when they don't get turnovers, because that's a big part of that D for Mike Pettin. And I don't know if you can, Gary says you got to try to stop him, whether you can do something with scheme or what. Or maybe it is what it is. I hope not.
Yeah, the big disappointment for the Packer defense has been Burks not being able to play when he comes in, because he has the coverage ability. He can back away. Blake Martinez is probably a future coach. His dad's a coach. Mm-hmm. He knows where everybody is. He just isn't athletic enough to quite get there. But he's one of the leading.
Is he A.J. Hawk?
I think that's a good analogy.
I
Where's
thought he
the
might
number?
be a star.
Where's the number, right?
Yeah.
Right. And with the club, he's probably A.J. Hawk and probably post 2012, probably at the tail end. But and Goodson is good against the run. He made that great play at the goal line against the Raiders where he knocked a running back who was going over the top. In terms of scheme, I'm wondering, I wanted to ask Gary whether they could put the best player on the defense, I think, is Alexander. Mm-hmm. Could they use him as a spy or something to McCaffrey? Because McCaffrey, he's 5'11 and 210.
Right.
I was wondering if he was going to be durable enough in the NFL, and he seems to be running really well, but they also get him on wheel routes and routes out of the backfield. He puts a lot of pressure on the DBs and linebackers.
Right, so this would be where Oren Burks would come into play. I mean, this should be a game for him. I mean, he's a guy that they went and drafted. He played safe, a little bit safety in college. Here's a guy that has enough speed to try to cover these guys out of the backfield. Now, when they went and got Martinez, he was out west. That's all they do was throw the ball out west. Yeah. And that's why they went and got the kid from out there, because they thought that he was in coverage a lot and that he can be pretty good within the new NFL right now where everybody's being spread out. So I see this game when it comes down to it. You're right. It is about McCaffrey. It's about how creative they are to get him outside and to get him in space. Martinez cannot handle this guy outside. So I don't know if it's Alexander or if it could be King, or maybe you take one of your safeties and bring him out. They're going to have to change something up. They can't just play it straight up like they've been playing. Listen to me. Pettin's defense to me seems like it is around Martinez. They've been blitzing on Burks and leaving Martinez free so he can go in and clean up and make all the tackles. And you're right. Sometimes he's making tackles 2 or 3 yards, not where he's supposed to be. Like, you want those tackles to be made in the backfield for losses. I believe he leads the league in tackles in the NFL, but those tackles they're just not powerful. They just don't really mean anything. They're just a lot of numbers. So, yes, he's got to get better at that spot.
Yeah, after a lot of first downs. And the thing with Burks that frustrates me is you'd think that they might be able to build around him. He's a big kid at 6'5", 220, which reminds me, speaking of build, we are proud to welcome Professional Construction, Inc. as our sponsor here to the podcast, featuring the star of the show, Gary Ellerson. They're out of Waukesha. They are celebrating their 15th anniversary. Mike and Michelle Grau are great family people, both personally and their professional family. There are so many wonderful things we want to share about this quality outfit, celebrating again that 15th anniversary, and we will do so as time goes on. Thanks to PCI, proud to have them on the team. Raven Green, I never thought that we'd be saying this guy was an MVP. You know, they're talking about they got rid of Tim Williams, a disappointing kid who came in, and they activated Ibrahim Campbell. Could he take over that role, do you think?
Well, the interesting thing last year is they brought him in off the street after they traded HaHa, and he played a couple of weeks, and there was no drop-off, which told you, I thought Gutekunst should have been executive of the year, getting a 4th-round pick for HaHa at the end of the trade deadline. He did show something. He also had that interception drop. I can't remember what game it was. Was it the San Francisco game? He had an interception that he dropped that changed the whole face of the game, but he had been off the street the week before. So, you have to cut some slack in that way.
Offensively, as far as San Francisco is concerned, that was the game where Carolina gave up 51 points, I believe. But the Packers offense we know has struggled, and now you have a defense for Carolina that is playing much better. So how do you see that matchup, and what in the world can the Packers do to protect Aaron Rodgers, 8 sacks in the last 2 games, and get into that rhythm you talked about, Gary, on the last podcast that was sorely missing in L.A. against the Chargers?
And you're right, Carolina defense is really good, but I don't think it's about Carolina's defense, more so it's about Aaron Rodgers and his offense finding a rhythm, where they want to be, how they want to conduct the game plan. I just think if you look at Matt LaFleur's offense, it is about timing, it's about quick passing, it's about Aaron Rodgers get the football out of your hand quickly. That's why he wasn't being sacked very much, because the timing was just down really well. So it's about Aaron Jones. And you look at Jamal Williams, I think he's come on to be a really good receiver for them as well. And I heard LaFleur talk a little bit about we need to get MVS more involved. Here's a guy to me, I think, he's got 4.3 speed. He's 6'3", 6'4". You got to just throw it to him 3 or 4 times deep, whether you hit him or not. I mean, just throw it out there and let the guy just do something. And I think you've got to get him more involved. I like what Lazard has been able to do. He's more of a bigger physical receiver. So I think they have the talent to get it done. They just got to get back into that short passing game rhythm that they had early on.
You've talked a lot, John, about the protection and how great it has been, but certainly over the last couple of games, we know about Balaga's finger issue. That probably was a factor for him against it. And Gary pointed out, I mean, Bosa is just outstanding. Not many people are going to stop him, and Bakhtiari and Balaga normally can go one-on-one. They weren't able to do so. But do you expect this line to bounce back? I mean, that's going to be obviously critical. You've got to give 12 time to do his thing.
I think everybody is going to be better this week. I think when you eat a little bit of humble pie after that Kansas City game, everybody's telling you how great they are, you are, and
reading the press clippings,
and now you're not. This is a tremendously important game for Green Bay. If you're 8-2 after this, going into the bye, and you have 2 weeks to prepare for San Francisco versus 7-3, if you're 7-3, you fall back to the pack with Minnesota, then Philadelphia is right close to you. There's a whole bunch of teams, as Gary said, the NFC is terrific and it's deep, but there's an opportunity there. You look at the Packers' schedule going forward, there's Carolina, which will be a very good game, San Francisco, and at Minnesota. But the other ones, the Giants, the Bears aren't playing well right now. That'll always be a tough game. Packer-Bears always is. You have Detroit at Detroit. They have a chance to win 12 games, but it really starts with Sunday.
Right. If you look at the playoffs right now, Pip, they could. Your wild card teams could be Minnesota and Seattle.
Wow.
Right? I mean, you don't want to play either one of those guys in the first round. I mean, those are really good football. I mean, Russell Wilson right now is having an MVP season,
yes, he
right?
is. You are so right.
Now, the Minnesota Vikings kind of stumbled a little bit last week against Kansas City, but that's not a team that you really want to go play with Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook and Thielen and those Diggs and those guys offensively. You know about the defense and Zimmer. So, yeah, to me, those two teams are your wild card teams right now. That is a loaded NFC.
As you say, Minnesota is probably more talented than the Pack, except at quarterback. And depending on how Kirk Cousins plays, when you get a good Kirk Cousins, this is a Super Bowl team. As you say, anybody could be in the Super Bowl from the NFC. So this may be, as we're talking, I'm starting to think this could be the game of the season to this point. They have got to have this if they have these aspirations.
That Kirk Cousins, except Kirk Cousins, that's a big except. Because he's making $29 million or so. A-Rod's making $33, and that's a $4 million difference.
Is that a big drop?
That's a big drop. But it was amazing how when Pettin could get the Smith brothers into his face, how he takes a step back. Aaron Rodgers is just amazing. He can make plays when people are in his face, and he can get out of the pocket. I wanted to ask Gary a question. I've noticed this all year and in previous years, and specifically during the Oakland game. Have you noticed when MVS had his long touchdown catch and run after it, he drove the defensive back a certain way and he slipped. It seems like when Vitale caught his pass, he went to the sidelines. Every time he tried to cut, he slipped. It seems like on the Lambeau Field turf, there seems to be a lot of slipping, and I'm wondering if it's that. It looks great. I mean, I used to walk, in your era, I used to walk from the one locker room to the other locker room right down the middle when they allow you to walk on the field, and it looked like it was painted dirt. Kind of what you played on.
When we had it, Forrest loved long grass. So, I mean, it was thick, and because if you look at myself, Lee Ivory, Jesse Clark, Gary Ellis, we were all bigger backs.
Right.
So he liked guys about 6 feet, 230, and so he would grow that grass long, and it would be a little muddy. The track that they have now, though, you're right. They slip on it a lot. They keep it really thin. If it rains or get a little icy, it could get very slippery. And it's been like that for years. So they got that grass mixed in with some synthetic turf or something like that. And it's
50-50.
Good. It's good if you're a track guy, but if you're trying to be, like McCaffrey, he's got to come in and make sure he's got the right cleats on, because if he doesn't, he will fall.
It's unbelievable drainage. That one Thanksgiving game they had against the Bears 4 or 5 years ago, it rained probably 4 inches during the game, and the field just drained perfectly. They have great drainage, but I'm wondering if it's at the expense of maybe getting a groin injury. And I happened to walk in one time with Ted Thompson about 5 years ago, and I said, Ted, you're getting a lot of groin pulls, hamstring pulls, calf pulls. Do you think it's the field? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, it's part plastic, and it's woven with real grass. And he said, well, we have that on the Reinitsky field too. And I said, exactly. I mean, could you be susceptible? Is your team more susceptible to these things? And he said, boy, I haven't thought of that, but let me look into it. And I don't know whatever happened. Probably thought
they still got the same field.
They do, except they bought a new one.
Right.
The other one had worn out, so they replaced it this past year. It looks great, and
it does.
But I'm just wondering, it's slippery.
Slick. Yeah. It's very slick when it gets wet.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
John Dodds is Packers historian, an expert on grass. If you want experts in construction well, I think our family out there knows. Experts in construction, home remodeling, you name it, Professional Construction, Inc., they are our sponsor. We are just delighted to have them on the team. Mike and Michelle Grau, two of the finest people you'll ever meet. They're so involved in the community, and we'll embellish that, as I have been saying, as we go on with future podcasts. Very, very thankful to PCI celebrating their 15th anniversary. A prediction from you, Gary Ellerson and John Dodds. Is this a team that's going to bounce back and be 8-2 going to bye, or falling down to the Pack, John, at 7-3?
Well, I think it's a team that I think they're rectifying. I mean, we're going to find out how it bounces back, right? I mean but we're thinking that this team has enough talent. I mean, you've got the best quarterback in the league in Aaron Rodgers. He's a really good leader, so you would think that he can get these guys back and understand they want to play. Their defense, led by the Smith brothers, I think they can put pressure on Carolina. So, yeah, I think the Green Bay Packers can go in and get a win, but I still think it's going to be close. I think the Packers can win at 28-24.
Oh, I like that. 8 up and 2 down, or 7 and 3, John?
8 up, I think. The only issue is Balaga's hand and Kevin King. If those guys can play, I think 31-23. I think the Packers win the game. But it's the pass rush. Carolina's got a nice defense, but Green Bay has the big difference makers, Balaga and Bakhtiari. Those guys are just like Clifton and Tauscher were back in the day. Whenever the Packers played the Giants, they would totally neutralize the Giant defensive ends, and there'd be an extra offensive lineman to do something else, and then the tackles couldn't make plays because there's extra. Those guys are really good. Hopefully they can. Balaga's hand is okay, and then he can heal up over the bye.
All right, well, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid because I'm so excited to have Gary Ellerson, former Badger Packer, star of the show 105.7 FM The Fan, the big show, 2 to 6 in the afternoons, and, of course, Spectrum Sports with Leroy Butler, and the football show hosted by a fella named Dennis Krause. They are simply the best. Just delighted, blessed to have you here, Gary, and looking forward to weekly, right through the end of the season, right into February, and hopefully the Pack will be at the Super Bowl. So for PCI, our fantastic sponsor, Gary Ellerson, John Dodds, I'm Tom Pippins. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.